Hello there. It's getting funny now. After all, the Conservative Party can act quickly and unsentimentally in an emergency. After the debacle with Prime Minister Johnson and Truss, there is now an experienced pragmatic successor. Is there? Well, the basic problem of the party should remain anyway. After Liz Truss' resignation, the search for her successor begins. A potential applicant already has enough supporters behind them. In the race to succeed outgoing Prime Minister Liz Truss, ex-Chancellor of the Exchequer Rishi Sunak has been the first to rally the necessary 100 supporters among Tory MPs. "I'm honoured to be the 100th Tory MP to endorse Ready for Rishi," is what Conservative MP Tobias Elwood wrote on Twitter. Neither Sunak nor Johnson have officially announced their candidacies, though. Only House Leader Penny Mordaunt has already thrown her hat in the ring. Sunak would automatically become party leader and prime minister if his opponents fail to rally 100 supporters each. According to a Friday night tally by political website Guido Fawkes, Sunak has 103 supporters, Johnson has 68 and Mordaunt has 25. British Parliamentary Minister Penny Mordaunt was the first to announce her candidacy, as I said, to succeed outgoing Prime Minister Liz Truss. "I have been heartened by the support of colleagues who want a fresh start, a united party and leadership in the national interest," the Conservative politician said on Twitter on Friday. As party leader and Prime Minister, she wants to unite the country, implement the Tories' election promises, and win the next general election. That's at least what Mordaunt said. Mordaunt, who had already applied for the post of Prime Minister after the resignation of Truss' predecessor Boris Johnson in the summer, was third in the number of her supporters behind ex-Chancellor Rishi Sunak and ex-Prime Minister Boris on Friday, according to the British media. British Defence Secretary Ben Wallace had previously ruled out a candidacy. "I am privileged to be the Secretary of Defence, and the current threat requires stability in this office," he said on Twitter. He told the BBC he is currently leaning towards supporting Boris Johnson. Although he has a few questions to answer regarding a parliamentary investigation against him, Johnson has always supported him in his security policy line. Economic Secretary Jacob Rees-Mogg had previously pleaded for Johnson from the current cabinet. According to reports, ex-Prime Minister Johnson, who only left office at the beginning of September due to numerous scandals, is said to be interested in running for office again. I'll talk about that one a little bit more at noon. His successor Liz Truss announced her resignation on Thursday after just 6 weeks in office. However, it was initially unclear whether Johnson would receive enough support in the group. In addition, an investigation is currently underway in Parliament to clarify whether Johnson lied in connection with the Partygate affair about prohibited celebrations during the lockdown at 10 Downing Street, which still is the seat of government. A new head of government should be elected by Friday next week at the latest. According to the party, candidates need the backing of at least 100 MPs to run. Nominations can be received until Monday afternoon. If more than 2 candidates pass this hurdle, votes should take place between them in the parliamentary group. If there are 2 finalists, the party base can decide between them in an online vote during the week. Well, since the Brexit vote in 2016, things have been going haywire in the British Parliament. After the resignation of Prime Minister Liz Truss, the 5th Prime Minister has followed in just 6 years. Again and again, politicians fail when it comes to leaving the EU, and there are definitely good reasons for that. The United Kingdom and its institutions have traditionally been revered on the continent as a haven of stability, a long and balanced view of history and the future. The green benches in the House of Commons symbolize the democratic struggle for a policy that creates a balance in the interest of a nation for a very long time. Since the Brexit vote in 2016, however, the Honourable Westminster Palace has become a madhouse. The fifth Prime Minister within 6 years will move into number 10 in the next few days. That's, by the way, how many federal chancellors Germany has had in the past 50 years. Liz Truss, who resigned on Thursday after just 45 days in office, broke the tragic record of being the shortest-serving Prime Minister since 1834. British politics has developed a self-destructive centrifugal force that, for those who still stout easy solutions to our current challenges, should serve as a deterrent. We lost our way, is what many Britons say resignedly when asked about the reason for the misery. Traditional British Eurosceptics are still amazed at the radical nature of the exit from the EU shortly after Theresa May took office in the summer of 2016. Brexit was suddenly much more than decoupling from Brussels' supposed chains. It became a commitment to the pure doctrine, according to which the nation-state is a panacea and the free power of the market is the answer to every economic crisis. After all, the columnists in the Tory-affiliated papers yelled day after day that Brexit had finally been implemented, that the new freedoms had to be used, and that Brussels' bureaucratic ballast had to be thrown off. Well, the rise and fall of Liz Truss is a prime example of how obsessed the right wing of the Tory party is with this ideology. In the election campaign to succeed Boris Johnson, she gave Conservative members the libertarian fare they longed for and was rewarded with a top job. As soon as she was in office, she promptly pushed her ideological business ideas through without taking into account the world around her or the financial leeway available. Driven by the idea of going down in the history books like Margaret Thatcher for difficult but necessary reforms. This time in the Brexit era. To the frequently asked question of what the real Brexit is, there's still no convincing answer to this day. Instead, there's always the explanation that the three prime ministers who have already failed to communicate properly. The truth is that the Tory party's Brexit ideology is hollow. It's a handful of clever slogans that, unfortunately for the British nation, have caught on for too long. Liz Truss' spectacular failure is the clearest example of this. After the severe market turbulence of the past few weeks, investors are now waiting to see how things will continue in Great Britain. The poor economic situation in the country continues to create uncertainty. All in all, after the resignation of British Prime Minister Liz Truss, the reaction on the financial markets has remained fairly muted. In other words, quite muted, as one of British analysts put it. Investors are now waiting to see what comes next. These almost 6 weeks of Truss government caused wild up and downs on the financial markets. As a look at the price table of the index of the 100 largest listed companies in Great Britain shows, which closed slightly higher 2 days ago. The FTSE 100 has zigzagged lower since Truss took office in early September as UK government bond yields rose and the pound continued to weaken. Even long-time stock market professionals in the City of London have never experienced anything like this, as CMC Markets chief analyst Michael Hewson reports to the BBC. The events of the past 2 or 3 weeks, I'm already losing track of time, have been very extraordinary. And short already following the PM's announcement that she was stepping down, we are already seeing a positive reaction in the bond market and a positive reaction in sterling, but falling back to $1.11. The British currency was back down to 1.14 at the start of trading. Currency experts such as Sonia Martin from DZ Bank believe that things could continue to be so volatile because the fundamental uncertainty in the face of an impending economic downturn in Great Britain, it still remains. In this situation, the Truss government wanted to boost growth on credit, while at the same time lowering taxes on large scale for companies and financing the whole thing with debt. The financial markets reacted unequivocally. Investors fled British government bonds and the state had to pay more to borrow. The Bank of England stepped in and bought up the debt securities. With Truss' resignation, the plans are off the table for the time being. The government must first ensure trust. That was said by Martin Lück, capital market strategist at asset manager BlackRock. And the best way to win back this trust is to present a solid budget that is solidly financed. The successor in Downing Street must therefore think more about raising taxes than lowering them. And I'll see you in my next video with Boris. I'll be back.